Can I stay here? Just for a little while? I don't want to go back out there, she whispered. That was all it took. He shifted closer, resting a tentative hand on her shoulder, a gesture of comfort, maybe, but it was the exact moment her parents needed. Click. The camera shutter flashed in the dark sedan. 2 days later, he received the envelope. Inside were 3 photographs, Naomi on his couch, his hand on her shoulder, her leaning slightly toward him. No context. Just enough to ruin him. The letter that came with it was short, typed in neat block letters. $10,000 in cash. 3 days. Or your wife gets these. The first time it happened, the smell of cheap perfume and the faint hum of the old ceiling fan filled the cramped apartment. Remember, eyes down, her adoptive mother's voice was sharp, like a knife scraping across glass. Men don't like girls who look too confident. You're supposed to be lost. Helpless. Naomi sat on the edge of the bed, her knees pressed together, her hands twisting the hem of her faded dress. The fabric was thin, worn from too many washes, but her mother insisted it made her look innocent. I don't want to, Naomi's voice cracked, trembling under the weight of the room's stale heat. Her adoptive father stepped forward, the floorboards groaning under his heavy boots. You don't get to want anything, he said, his tone low and cold. You're doing this for the family. For us. Don't forget who took you in when nobody else would. The words burned. She remembered the night they brought her here, rain soaking through her thin sweater, the streetlights blurring in her tears. Back then, she thought they were rescuers. Now she knew better. Her mother dabbed lipstick onto her mouth with a rough, impatient hand. There, she said, leaning back to inspect her work. Soft, but not too much. You just need to get them to invite you over. Once you're in, we'll take care of the rest. Naomi's stomach churned. She knew the rest. The hidden camera. The flash in the dark. The way the men's faces would twist from charm to panic once the photos arrived. The hallway outside smelled of cigarette smoke and damp carpet. Her father walked her to the door, his hand clamped on her shoulder. Tonight's a good one, he murmured, almost to himself. His wife's gone for the weekend. He's lonely. Naomi swallowed hard. Every step toward the unknown house felt like walking deeper into a trap she could never escape. But she had learned, escape wasn't an option. The street was quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears until you can hear your own heartbeat. Somewhere far away, a dog barked. You remember what to say, her mother called from the doorway. Naomi nodded without turning back. Yes, she whispered. I remember. She didn't add the rest, that she remembered everything. Every look. Every lie. Every moment she wished she could disappear. The porch light of the man's house was already on, casting a yellow glow on the front steps. Naomi hesitated at the gate, the smell of jasmine from the garden almost masking the sour taste in her mouth. She took a breath, put on the mask they had taught her, and knocked. The door creaked open. The man who opened the door was in his early 40s, tall but slightly stooped, with the kind of face that looked like it had forgotten how to smile naturally. Hi, he said, his voice uncertain, scanning her from head to toe. Are you lost? Naomi lowered her gaze, twisting her fingers like she'd practiced. I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go, she murmured, letting her voice tremble. It's dark. She let the sentence hang in the air like a frayed thread. His eyes softened, just enough. A small sigh escaped him, the sigh of someone who wanted to believe they were doing the right thing. All right, come inside, he said, glancing over his shoulder into the empty hallway. You can sit down for a bit. The warmth of the house wrapped around her like a trap disguised as comfort. A faint scent of coffee lingered in the air, mixed with something sharper, cologne. The living room was dim, only a single lamp on by the sofa. She perched at the edge of the couch, shoulders hunched, eyes darting around the room. It wasn't for show this time, she was looking for the camera. She knew it was there. It always was. The man cleared his throat. Would you like something to drink? Tea? Water? She shook her head quickly. No, thank you. Her voice was small, a trembling whisper. Outside, parked across the street, a black sedan sat under the shadows of a jacaranda tree. Inside, her adoptive father adjusted the lens of a camera mounted on the dashboard. Her mother leaned forward, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. That's it, closer, her father muttered as the man moved to sit beside Naomi on the couch, keeping a polite distance at first. Naomi felt her chest tighten. She hated this moment, the moment when kindness turned into curiosity, when curiosity turned into something that could destroy a man's life. The conversation was light at first. He asked her name, where she was from. She kept her answers vague, rehearsed. Then, just as her mother had told her to, she let her lower lip tremble, as if holding back tears. Can I stay here? Just for a little while? I don't want to go back out there, she whispered. That was all it took. He shifted closer, resting a tentative hand on her shoulder, a gesture of comfort, maybe, but it was the exact moment her parents needed. Click. The camera shutter flashed in the dark sedan. By the time Naomi left the house 30 minutes later, the man looked confused, almost relieved. He thought he had done nothing wrong. He thought he had simply helped a lost girl. 2 days later, he received the envelope. Inside were 3 photographs, Naomi on his couch, his hand on her shoulder, her leaning slightly toward him. No context. Just enough to ruin him. The letter that came with it was short, typed in neat block letters. $10,000 in cash. 3 days. Or your wife gets these. Naomi sat in her room, staring at the wall, listening to her parents laugh in the kitchen. Every sound felt like a chain tightening around her throat. The nights began to blur together. Different houses. Different men. Different lies. The only constant was the heavy knot in Naomi's stomach. She would knock, timid, calculated, and wait for the pause, the moment the door cracked open, and the man on the other side hesitated between suspicion and sympathy. Some were businessmen in tailored shirts, their cologne mingling with the smell of late-night whiskey. Others were quiet, lonely types, their living rooms dim and cluttered, like they hadn't been touched since their wives left. A few were polite, too polite, trying to keep a careful distance. Others let their eyes linger too long. Every time, she followed the same script. Lost. Helpless. A voice just above a whisper. The invitation inside always came. And every time, the black sedan wasn't far, parked in the shadows, its engine cold, the camera ready. Her parents would greet her at the door when she came home, as if she'd been away at some harmless errand. Her adoptive mother would cup her face and smile, saying, "You did so well tonight, sweetheart. You're keeping this family together." Her father would nod, proud. "We love you, Naomi. Everything we do for you." For me? The words rotted in her head. If they loved her, why did they keep sending her to strangers' homes, where a locked door could turn into a cage? Some nights, when a man's hand brushed her too close to her knee or his eyes flicked toward the bedroom down the hall, her pulse would spike in panic. What if tonight, he doesn't stop? What if tonight, they're too late? But she could never say it out loud. After each job, her parents would count the envelopes of cash with the kind of joy other families reserved for birthdays or Christmas mornings. Her mother would hum, her father would whistle, and Naomi would sit in silence, feeling smaller with each laugh. The darkness inside her grew with every knock on a stranger's door. It wasn't just fear anymore, it was something heavier, like the slow sinking of a stone into deep water. Sometimes, lying awake in her narrow bed, she'd imagine just walking past the house she was meant to go to. Just keep walking, down the street, past the next block, past the sedan, until the night swallowed her whole. But then she'd hear her father's voice in her head, "Don't forget who took you in when no one else wanted you," and she'd see her mother's thin smile. Love, they called it. To Naomi, it felt like chains. The house that night was different. It was bigger than most, a wide porch wrapped around it, warm light spilling through tall windows, the faint sound of jazz playing from somewhere inside. Naomi hesitated at the gate, feeling that same knot in her stomach. Across the street, the black sedan sat as always. Her parents were silhouettes behind the windshield, her father adjusting the camera, her mother watching intently, waiting for that moment when the man's hand would linger too long. She walked up the steps and knocked, her hand trembling more than usual. The door opened almost immediately. The man who stood there looked to be in his late 40s, clean-shaven, with calm, watchful eyes. He wore a plain white shirt, sleeves rolled up, and a faint scent of soap followed him. "You must be Naomi," he said softly. Her breath caught. "How?" "I know you're not here because you want to be," he interrupted gently. "It's all right. You're not in trouble." Naomi blinked, her body frozen halfway between fight and flight. I don't understand." He glanced over her shoulder, toward the street where the sedan sat in the shadows. "You don't have to. Not yet. But I promise you, I know what they've been making you do. And I know you're not a part of it. You're just trying to survive." Her heartbeat roared in her ears. No one had ever said that to her before. Not once. "Listen to me," he continued, his voice low and steady. "I'm with the FBI. We've been watching them for weeks. Tonight, it ends. But I need you to play along, just for a little longer." Naomi's eyes darted toward the street. Her parents were still watching, completely oblivious. Her mother had even leaned back, smirking, as if already imagining the money. "They're dangerous," Naomi whispered, almost afraid to speak the words. "If they find out?" "They won't," he said firmly. "Not until we're ready." He stepped aside, just enough for her to enter. She hesitated, then crossed the threshold. The living room was neat but strangely bare, no family photos, no clutter. Only a small table near the corner with what looked like a laptop and a black case. They can't see this from outside, he said, nodding toward a corner where a small red light blinked. Hidden camera. Audio. We'll give them what they think they want, and when they bite, we'll have them. Naomi's knees felt weak. For years, she'd been the bait. Now, for the first time, someone was using the trap against them. From outside, the low hum of the sedan's engine carried faintly through the walls. Her father was probably adjusting the zoom. Her mother might be rehearsing the letter she'd type later. They had no idea the next envelope they'd receive wouldn't be full of money, but a warrant. The man, Agent Cole, he told her quietly, led Naomi to the couch, positioning her where she'd be in full view of the hidden camera. You don't need to do anything you don't want to, he said. Just sit, keep your voice low, and look like you're talking to me. They need to think everything's going exactly as they planned. Naomi nodded, her hands clenched in her lap. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest as Cole sat beside her, leaning forward slightly so it would look intimate from a distance. Outside, in the sedan, her father's voice was sharp with excitement. Look at that. He's moving in close already. Her mother chuckled, tapping the camera monitor. Perfect angle. This one will pay big. Back inside, Cole glanced at his watch, then subtly touched the earpiece hidden beneath his short hair. We've got eyes. Stand by, he murmured. Naomi froze as a faint crackle of static answered him. Someone on the other end replied, copy. Perimeter secure. On your go. Her stomach twisted. This is really happening. Cole kept talking to her in a low voice, his eyes warm but focused. In a few minutes, they'll come to the door. They'll think they're picking you up. I need you to stay calm, Naomi. We'll take care of the rest. Minutes passed like hours. Outside, her father finally opened the car door. Naomi could see him approaching through the lace curtains, his camera slung casually at his side, his mother following close behind with that same smug smile. This is it, Naomi thought, her pulse hammering in her ears. A knock came at the door, firm, confident. Cole stood, walking over casually, as if this were just part of the act. He opened it. Evening, her father said smoothly. We're here to collect our girl. Cole smiled faintly. Oh, I think she's right where she needs to be. Before her father could answer, the street outside erupted with flashing blue and red lights. Tires screeched, boots pounded on pavement. Shouts rang out, FBI. Hands where we can see them. Her father spun around, eyes wide, as agents swarmed the porch and front yard. Her mother's smirk evaporated, replaced by a look of pure confusion that quickly curdled into fear. What the hell is this? Her father barked, his voice cracking as two agents gripped his arms and forced him against the railing. You're under arrest for conspiracy, extortion, and child exploitation, one agent recited flatly, snapping cold steel cuffs around his wrists. Her mother was shouting now, something about a misunderstanding, but Naomi couldn't hear her over the pounding in her ears. Cole stepped back into the living room, his expression calm, almost relieved. It's over, he told Naomi gently. She didn't answer. She just sat there, staring at the doorway where her parents had stood minutes before, now empty except for the sound of their voices fading into the night as they were led away. For the first time in years, Naomi wasn't bait. She wasn't a pawn. And she wasn't going back with them.